of the yay area. The summer of Steph, it continues. So according to Rolling Stone, Steph has nearly locked a lifetime contract with Under Armour that is worth potentially more than $1 billion. So he's been with the company since 2013 and has since released 12 signature basketball and golf shoes, with the Curry 10 set to release next month, of course. So that got me thinking, guys. Steph worth the $1 billion lifetime contract. I mean, how can you quantify that, Perk? I'm going to start with you here.
Well, if they're giving him $1 billion, just imagine how much he's making them, okay? That's the first thing. Second thing, I'm jealous. The third thing, he deserves it, right? When you talk about a guy that changed the game of basketball forever, the light-skinned brother with the green eyes, I mean, he is something different. Coming off of his first finals MVP, won the championship. I mean, Steph Curry is basketball. And so when you think about what he's done for the game, yes, he's worth $1 billion. Absolutely.
Is he, Zach, the most marketable star in the NBA right now?
First of all, I didn't know Steph Curry's eye color until Perk just dropped it right there. Well done, Perk. Look, just ask yourself, what was Under Armour in the sneaker business before they got Steph Curry? I'm not a sneaker guy, but I think the answer is not very much. And as for his marketability, yes, Malika, yes, he is. And it's because, for all the reasons we've talked about for years, because of his size and the way he plays, kids can relate to him in a way that they can't relate to Shaq and LeBron and guys who are just bigger than they will ever dream of being. Steph just, is sort of the people's champ in that regard. All those guys are super marketable, obviously, but now Steph is the guy. People's champ is such a great way to put it. All right. We're talking about billions.
Oh, there you go.
I also want to talk about millions here, because did you guys hear this? A jersey that was worn by Michael Jordan in Game 1 of the '98 NBA Finals, part of the hallowed Last Dance season for Jordan, culminated with the Bulls they reigned victorious over the Jazz. Do you know how much it sold for? It sold for over $10 million, and it's now the most ever paid for a piece of game-worn sports memorabilia. $10 million. And I was actually talking to Roz about this in the break, and at first I was like, $10 million, that's ridiculous. But I suppose if you think about art and you think about the fact that Leonardo da Vinci had something that sold for $450 million, then I feel like that might be. Anyway, Perk, if you could purchase any game-worn jersey, what would it be?
It would be a 2010 NBA Finals Game 7 jersey worn by the late, great Kobe Bryant. You know why? Because he won his 5th championship, 2nd Finals MVP, his 2nd championship without Shaquille O'Neal. And when you think about the superstars and the Hall of Famers that were competing in that series, you think of Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, KG, and Kobe Bryant. Well, Paul Pierce and KG and Kobe and Ray Allen were all on one team. Kobe was by himself. Kobe actually willed that team to victory because Boston was actually up by 14 points to start the fourth quarter. And Kobe said, let me get that. So give me Kobe Bryant Game 7 of the 2010 NBA Finals.
What about you, Zach?
So this question kind of hijacked my entire day, and I had 10 different answers. I almost went flu game, MJ 97 Finals, but I thought, what was the single greatest game I ever watched? The most exciting, enthralling, dramatic game, the most tense game. And for me, just as a sports fan, it was Duke, Kentucky, 1992.
Robert Sarver's racist and misogynistic comments and behavior. PayPal, that is the team's jersey patch sponsor, said Friday it would not be renewing its partnership with the team should Sarver return to his role after his 1-year suspension. And this, what you're seeing on your screen right now, is part of a statement that was made by PayPal CEO and President Dan Schulman. So Baxter, what is the significance of this?
It's very significant. We talked about on the show the last couple days concern internally in the fallout of the NBA's findings of sponsors beginning to flee and wanting to smooth things over with them. This is kind of the first domino in that respect. Obviously, you look back to the situation with Donald Sterling. I think at least a dozen sponsors fled the team in the fallout of that. I've talked about the intensifying concern internally about losing sponsors in the wake of LeBron James and Chris Paul's tweets. Here we have this today. I know that as of this morning, there's more concern about other big name sponsors. Certainly, a jersey patch sponsor, according to sources, I'm told $3 million in revenue to the team last year. So it's significant.
That's interesting. And you have to imagine the question now is, could this be a domino for other sponsors to potentially pull out here? And all of this, Baxter, right, it comes within hours of minority owner Jahm Najafi calling for Sarver to resign. And as you all can see here, this is just a part of his statement. I am calling for the resignation of Robert Sarver. So what kind of weight, Baxter, does his specific statement hold?
It holds a lot of weight. First of all, this is the second largest stakeholder in the team behind Robert Sarver.
Second largest.
Yes. And then also to go back, when our story was initially released in November of 2021, the Suns released a statement with a number of the minority owners signing in support of Robert Sarver. Jahm Najafi was not one of those. In fact, he released his own statement saying that he was very concerned about the nature of the allegations and concerned for the employees and wanting to do whatever he could to try to help them and help the investigation along and so forth. So this is significant. And there was one line in his statement that really struck me. It was the only line that was in all caps, and it said, "Words and actions matter." And we talked a lot about animus, which was a key word in the NBA's in the investigation report. Adam Silver was asked about it a lot. What did someone really mean? The fact that he included that, I thought it was striking.
Yeah, it was almost your interpretation when looking at it that perhaps that could be in direct response. Again, just sort of thinking through what just having that specifically in all caps could mean. So we've talked about statements made by the PayPal CEO, now by the majority owner who has the second largest stake. Something else to note, Phoenix mayor, this is interesting, a statement was also issued, as you can see here. We, like many others in our community, are appalled by the actions substantiated in the NBA's independent investigation into Phoenix Suns managing partner Robert Sarver. We have asked city staff to investigate any actions we as leaders of the city of Phoenix can take in light of the details substantiated in that report. And that's interesting to me because, remember, as we continue to look at this statement here, it was the city, right, Baxter, that put some money into the new arena that the Suns built.
Yeah, if you remember, not even that long ago, and I know one of the things that people talked about was the woman named Greta who got up before the city council and made some strong remarks about Robert Sarver at the time. But there was a lot of contentious back and forth about the money for the arena and whatnot. So the city does have a stake financially in this in a way.
Interesting. All right, I do want to bring in our Zach Lowe and Kendrick Perkins into this discussion. Good morning, gentlemen, or good afternoon on the coast that you are on. Zach, what do you make of this, Zach, as we continue to hear not only of minority owners making statements, but now sponsors are pulling out?
Two things. The first is last season, as the story was published and unfolded, the team kind of internally, the players and the coaches made a decision. We're going to address it. We're going to address it head on, and then we're putting it over here. We're playing for each other. We're playing for a championship. And it kind of went away for a while. I think there were some people who thought even when this report came out, that would happen again. And more, even before PayPal today, even before LeBron and Chris Paul tweeted, there was a sense that this is just not going to go away. And I think the avalanche of news since then, starting with LeBron's tweet, into Adam Silver's press conference, into the stuff you guys just talked about, this isn't going to go away. And I've had more than one source close to the team say some variation of, he just can't walk back in there, Robert Sarver, a year from now like nothing ever happened. That's just not an option anymore. The second thing is I'm interested in what happens with some of the gender discrimination issues that this report very clearly raised. Things that seemed legally dubious to a lay person like me. Telling a pregnant woman that her pregnancy may jeopardize her career, or at least implying that. Saying, Robert Sarver saying, why do all the women around here cry so much? lewd comments over and over again about women's bodies, the bodies of female staffers. All that stuff seemed to me to create a hostile work environment, to raise discrimination claims. And I ran that stuff by 3 high-powered attorneys yesterday who deal in this area, and they said, look, there are statute of limitations issues that may prohibit some of these victims, alleged victims, from raising those claims. But boy, oh boy, had they raised them in a timely fashion, they would have been strong cases. A plaintiff's lawyer could have built very strong cases. I'm just interested to see if there's any sort of fallout from that.
Interesting. Perk, the last time that we spoke, you were saying that fair or unfair, it may fall on the players here to continue to push further action. And since then, we've heard from Chris Paul, we've heard from LeBron James, but we have not heard from you. What have you made of all of this?
Well, we knew this was going to happen, right? And it's almost like, you know, when you used to go to school and you used to go to recess and you had those certain kids that would just come in and they would be musty, okay? And this is what's happening right now with Robert Sarver and the Phoenix Suns. They're musty and no one wants to be around them. They're going to get far away from them as possible until they find a way to put some deodorant on. You know what the deodorant is, Malika? The deodorant is getting him out because nobody's wants to be affiliated with this organization whatsoever, as long as he's the owner of the organization. They're going to start to distance themselves. They're going to start to lose money, as we already seen today. And we all know, yes, the NBA is entertainment to everybody, and rightfully so. We know that it's a job, but we know that the NBA, just like any other corporation in business, they're about making money. And if you're a person that's causing the NBA, along with the organization, to lose out on money, I guarantee you that Adam Silver and the rest of the owners are going to go back to the drawing board. They're going to have another meeting to reevaluate this whole situation.
Baxter, you and Zach had a really interesting podcast that you all recorded recently, and as I was listening to it on my drive in today, and Zach, you made the point that there is a distinction here between banning an owner for life and forcing them to sell the team. I'm wondering if you can explain what stood out to you there.
Yeah, a lot of people conflate banning or suspending an owner indefinitely with, well, that's the same thing as making an owner sell the team. And those are different things. You can suspend an owner. Robert Sarver's just been suspended for 1 year. You can ban an owner like Adam Silver banned Donald Sterling. Banning, suspending, those don't take away the team from that person. Now, we've never had a situation for very long where someone was banned for life and still own the team. That seems untenable, but legally it is possible to be banned, to be kicked out of the arena, be kicked out of the team's operations, and still control the asset. Forcing an owner to sell the team, not just suspending him, forcing him to sell the team, involves a very rigorous and complicated process, at least in the NBA bylaws version, where 3/4 of the other owners have to vote that person out. And I don't think the league wants to go through that process for a whole bunch of reasons, including because the owner in question could turn around and sue the league and open up all sorts of Pandora's boxes. The reason they were able to force Donald Sterling out was they didn't have to go through that process because his wife took control of the team from him and sold it without his go-ahead. So it's a very complicated thing, but you can be banned or suspended and still own the team. They're different things.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We do have an interview coming up later in our show today with the MBPA Executive Director, Tamika Tamalio, and I expect her to address some of these things in that conversation. Still to cover the reaction to the NBA's one-year suspension of Suns owner Robert Sarver. And joining us now, MBPA Executive Director Tamika Tamalio. Tamika, just thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I wanted to start here, if we could. You issued a statement saying that you, quote, strongly believe that Mr. Sarver should never hold a managerial position within our league again. So to be clear, are you calling for Robert Sarver to be banned for life from the NBA?
Thank you very much. And again, thank you for having me. And absolutely, we are absolutely calling for that. We do not want him to be in a position where he is managing or engaging with individuals who are engaging with our players or our players themselves. We are absolutely clear from the findings that are in that report that we do not want him to be in that position.
So you were saying we, and you're the executive director of the MBPA. Are you speaking on behalf of players, or what is the MBPA's role in advocating for more severe actions taken against Robert Sarver beyond the 1-year suspension and fine?
No, absolutely. So yes, as the executive director of the MBPA, I am speaking on behalf of our players. It is our players' desire that while we understand that there has been a thorough investigation, and we're very pleased that the NBA was able to follow through on that, because that's clearly something that we want to see happen, we also want to make it very clear that we do not want him back in a position where he will be impacting our players and those who serve our players on a daily basis.
So what conversations have you had with players, and what sentiments have they shared with you that led you to this overall conclusion that the players' position is that they would like Mr. Sarver removed?
Yeah, so I've had many conversations with our players over the last 48, 72 hours, and it is very clear after our review of the report from Wachtell Lipton, as well as the press release, that this is something that we absolutely do not condone. We in no way want him to be back in a position where he's engaging.
Tamika, have current or former players of any team recounted to you witnessing or being the targets of Mr. Sarver's behaviors? And if so, what specifics can you share?
Yes, so obviously there have been many conversations with our player. I'm not at liberty, obviously, to disclose that, but I have not had any conversations specifically as it relates to actual engagement with our players.
So we appreciate you, Tamika, being here speaking on behalf of the MBPA. But in 2 weeks, players, they're going to be holding news conferences. They're going to be asked pointed questions about Robert Sarver. We've heard from LeBron James. We've heard from Chris Paul. We're hearing from you on behalf of the players. But what conversations are you having with them about their role in responding to Commissioner Adam Silver's ruling specifically?
Yeah, so we have been very clear that our players will have their own opinions and certainly have the right to voice their own opinions. Obviously, our president, CJ McCollum, has allowed me to speak on behalf of our union in terms of what we want collectively as the players. But certainly LeBron, Chris Paul, others are absolutely in a position to opine on those things that impact them and the way in which they feel about the things that have occurred.
You also said in your statement to our Mark Spears, Tamika, that, quote, I made my position to Adam Silver regarding my thoughts on the extent of the punishment known. How open was he to yours and others' thoughts about changing the decision of it being a 1-year suspension?
Yes, so thank you. I did absolutely have that conversation with Adam, and I was very clear of what our expectations are. I think, Adam has been very willing to hear me as well as hear others.
Where that Eurobasket game was, it's getting closer to bedtime there, but it's still early here in the States. So let's do this. I want to debut a new segment. It is called Don't Sleep. Thank you, Mr. Curry, for giving us yet another reason to use your celebration. So, Perk, this is how this is going to work. Wake up, sir. If there is one player that you do not want people to sleep on this season, who is it and why?
Every day I come on here, I got to prove my love. Listen, it's Trae Young. We have to prove every single season. He has to come into the season proving his love, right? We're talking about a player that led the league last year in total points and total assists. And when you look at the additions that he have around him, not only is Trae Young going to still be dangerous, but the Atlanta Hawks are going to be dangerous. I got them projected making the postseason next year, meaning that they will be a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference. I just love the pieces that they have around them. I love the addition of Murray. You have a two-way player in DeAndre Hunter, and then you have Collins, who is now starting to stretch his game for us on the offensive end for the spacing to shoot the three-point shot. And then you have everything that you want in a defensive-minded center and Clint Capella. don't sleep on Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks.
Got it. Don't sleep on Trae Young. Not to mention he may have that new dad superpower that we've seen come to fruition in the NBA. Zach, do you think that the Hawks are a play-in or a playoff team?
Borderline of those two things. But, Perk, I don't think anyone is sleeping on Trae Young. I think we're wide awake. Trae Young made All-NBA last year. Everyone knows how good Trae Young is. But the East is loaded. You got Milwaukee, Philly, Boston, whatever the hell the Brooklyn Nets are. I think they're still a basketball team. If they are, they're pretty good. Toronto's going to be good. Chicago's up there. Cleveland's up there. Making the playoffs is no joke in the East. So I think the Hawks are right in that sort of 5 to 8 group. If they don't make the play-in, that's a disaster. But the playoffs are no guarantee.
Okay, so don't sleep on Trae Young. Got it. Zach, if there's one team that you don't want people to sleep on, so we did player, team that you don't want people to sleep on this season, who is that and why?
We spend so much time on this show talking about the Lakers, talking about the Dunder Mifflin Brooklyn Nets, who exist only on paper and not as a real basketball team. Yeah. Talking about the Clippers are back. The Warriors just won the title. Don't forget the Denver Nuggets, who get Jamal Murray back, get Michael Porter Jr. back. This was a conference finals team in the bubble. They have the 2-time MVP. When they got Aaron Gordon via trade 2 seasons ago, they destroyed everything that was in front of them until Jamal Murray tore his ACL. ACL injuries, guys recover from those. It might take Jamal Murray half the season to get back to form. Michael Porter Jr., back injuries are a little bit scary. Put him up as an if. But if he's an if that ends up being a 20 to 25 point scorer, a 6'10 unblockable shooter, the Nuggets are in business in the inner circle of championship contenders, and we never talk about them. We are sleeping on them.
Oh, all right. Perk, what do you think the ceiling is? What do you expect from Jamal Murray this year?
You know what? I expect big things. The last time, that we saw Jamal Murray at his best was in the bubble, in my opinion. I think being away from the game of basketball, and although it was due to injury, you missed the game. And a guy like Jamal Murray, who's a pure hooper, you can't keep him away from the game that long. I think he's going to come back healthy. He had more than enough time to rest. And I think he's going to come back playing as an all-star caliber guard. Because just remember, throughout the regular season, Jamal Murray in his short stint for his career, he hasn't really looked good in the regular season. He always turned it up in the postseason, but I expect us to see an all-star version, 22 points a game a night, maybe 25, around that range, Jamal Murray. So I expect big things from him.
Well, not to mention, you said he's had plenty of time to recover. When I was chatting with Michael Malone in the playoffs last year, remember, there was a question of whether or not he was going to come back for those playoffs. That's how physically healthy he was at that point. He just needed a little bit more time to get his mentals right, make sure to get incredibly strong. He's had an extra several months to do that now. So that could be scary. But I want to play this game too, because I want to stay in the same conference, but who is the team, Zach, that didn't make the playoffs last year but has a coach that, by all accounts, is top 3 in the league? Who's the team that got bounced from the play-in last season but could easily win their conference this year? I'm going to answer my own question. It is the Clippers. I mean, a healthy Paul George, a healthy Kawhi Leonard, a healthy John Wall, all back with something to prove. Perk, are you sleeping on the Clippers?
No, actually, Malika, they're actually my favorite to win it all this season, to be honest with you. And I'm right there with you. I'm not sleeping. I'm actually wide awake on the Clippers. They're my favorite.
All right, so Perk's alarm went off. Zach, did yours?
Oh, I'm like 6 cups of coffee in on the Clippers. I'm running around the room with my eyes wide open. The Clippers have like 15 good NBA players. Kawhi's back, PG's back. If you want to anoint them the championship favorites, that's hard to argue. They're right there. Clippers, Warriors, Bucks, Celtics. I mean, I think those start the season as the 4 best teams in the league.
I absolutely agree. And when we're looking at it's hard for me to say, well, I'm going to give the nod. I explained this last year. I think if someone is coming off a championship, if they have the health and the similar roster and the mindset that we know that the Golden State Warriors do, we have to give them the nod, just like we did to the Bucks the year before. But the Clippers, I would not be surprised at all if they are the team that winds up representing the West. We still have so much more to come, though, on NBA Today. In July, Brittany Griner pleaded guilty to drug smuggling charges in Russian court and was sentenced to 9 years in prison in early August. And the fight for her release has only grown stronger since that day. Sherelle Griner, Brittany's wife, has been outspoken in the media, begging the White House to help in any way they can. And President Biden did call Sherelle to discuss their plans, but now he is scheduled to sit down and personally meet with Griner's family to assure them his administration is committed to securing Griner's release and that she remains, quote, front of mind. So we now welcome in ESPN investigative reporter TJ Quinn for more on this story. TJ, what exactly does this meeting between the president and Griner's family signal here?
Well, in some ways, it's a disappointing development for them. They'd wanted a meeting all along, but understood that these negotiations are quiet. You don't know what's going on. There was a sign earlier this week when everyone learned that former U.S. Ambassador Bill Richardson had gone to Russia to meet with officials. Maybe that was a sign that he could bring back a deal the president could sign off on. But now the fact that they're having this meeting and the White House has said that there's nothing to announce yet, there's some disappointment. I mean, this meeting, it's scheduled for late afternoon on a Friday with no press availability. They're looking to calm the family down. And her supporters know that what the president is going to ask them for is more patience.
So while I would love to say that the purpose of this meeting is to inform the families that the Russians have accepted our offer and we are bringing their loved ones home, that is not what we're seeing in these negotiations at this time.
Well, the family says it understands all of that and that they recognize the White House wants them to be patient, but they're also getting to a point where, while they say they still have faith in the president and in the State Department, they're starting to lose some patience and may get more vocal.
So what do the families hope to achieve then by being more vocal?
Yeah, it's when you speak to people in the administration, they say, hey, look, we understand the family's frustration, and we're working as hard as we can no matter what. The public pronouncements don't really help anything. But for Brittany Griner's family, they don't really care. They have one mission, that's to get her back. And they just want to make it clear to the president, we're going to keep putting the pressure on you. So when you have a deal, you need to make it right away.
And once again, that meeting with the president is today. TJ, thank you so much for spending some time with us here on NBA Today. And in the midst of the WNBA finals, it's clear that the league also wants to keep Brittany Griner in the forefront of public consciousness. The level of support from players in the W and athletes across multiple sports has not wavered throughout Griner's detainment. So here's our own Holly Rowe.
Not a day, not a single day goes by without all of us thinking of you.
I want to take a moment to reiterate the WNBA's support for Phoenix Mercury star Brittany Griner. Please know that getting her home safely continues to be our top priority.
Missing you, advocating for you.
It's always going to be difficult being around basketball without my wife being present, but I'm just so grateful that everybody in this arena is actually still remembering my wife, even without her being here.
When you actually meet with the State Department and the team that's actually working on BG's case every single day, it's basically a call on President Biden, on Vice President Harris to do everything they can to get BG back.
We miss your dominance on the court, of course.
Slam dunk, Brittany Griner.
But that is the smallest piece of what we miss about you. BG, you are funny as hell, sweet, kind, and you would be proud. We do continue to give to others in your name because you taught us how. Every WNBA team in every city pitched in, keeping your spirit of giving strong. Brittany is all of us, a WNBA champion, Olympian, an American. And so we won't rest. We won't stop. Bring Brittany home.
We will, of course,